Hey guys, so today I want to talk about making life a little bit easier in the kitchen. I've got Sophie and Noah at the playground. I have a little bit of time in the kitchen this morning, and one of the best little tips I can give you, especially if you have a busy household like mine, is that if you get time in the morning, making dinner for breakfast a thing is actually very helpful, because it means that if the day runs away from you and you have a very stressful thing going on, at least you know dinner is banked in the fridge ready to rock. So I'm going to make a very simple recipe. This is beef stroganoff. It's totally delicious, very easy, so let's get cooking. Now I know dinner at breakfast time feels very weird for a lot of people, but I love that idea that while Noah's making porridge or they're off in the playground, I can crack on with something that makes life a little bit simpler down the line. We've got some sirloin steak, we've got some mushrooms, some cream, a little bit of fresh fettuccine, some nice herbs, leeks, onions. The beauty of this whole recipe is that it doesn't take too much time to make. There's a little bit of chopping, a little bit of prep, but bar that, it's a very simple one to do. And I always think when I'm doing prep in the kitchen is to leave out some bowls. I always have to hand a few bowls as I'm prepping, because I like the idea that if I've chopped something up, that I have it in the bowl ready to go. And another good reason to have their bowls out is that, you know, if you're going to use meat and you're going to use the same chopping board, I like to do all my veggie prep before I do the meat, so it's a lovely way to kind of keep it stored. Let's talk about the onions. Just a nice fine chop on the onions. I remember the first time I learned how to cut an onion, and I was doing it in home ec in school, and literally you slice down and then you slice across, but I've actually stopped slicing across because I often find that you still get a nice fine chop if you do it this way as well. So this is a perfect example of why you have a prep bowl beside you, because literally once it's done, you can clear down your board and make life a little bit easier. I also, this is probably my worst habit, but this is why I always position myself in this part of the kitchen, is because I'm right beside the sink, and as I chop and I have any like scraps, I literally just scoop them off into the sink. So sometimes if I get it wrong, it scoops it right across the room, but that's okay too. Sometimes you just have to pick it up later. Right, we've onions done. Leeks, we need to kind of give the leeks a little bit of love. Just kind of trim them down, and we're gonna basically slice this in half. And this is where I wanna show you, there's a lot of like mud and grit and stuff like that. So I always bring the leeks to the sink once you've split it in half, and then you're just gonna want to really rinse them quite thoroughly so that you get a nice kind of clean leek to work with. All I'm looking for with the leeks is just a nice fine slice. These are gonna be chopped up, and they're gonna fry off alongside the onion. So a nice little sliver of leek here will go a long way. You just kind of want to give them a good rattle through, and then once they're in nice shape like this, pop them in with the onions in the same bowl. Actually, before I get started, I want to get my pot on with a little bit of water. So water is on to boil. Now, while we are doing more prep, what I'm gonna do is get my onions and leeks on and leave them to sweat out gently as we crack on with the rest. So heat on a pan, a nice knob of butter, and a little drizzle of oil will just prevent it from burning. Pop that straight in, and I just think the combination of melting butter, onions, and leeks, you are always in a good place to start off any recipe. We're gonna let that melt down, and as soon as it's melted, it's time to get in there with the onions and the leeks. I do have this moment where I quite enjoy the fact that like Sophie will take Noah off to the playground and I have a moment to make dinner. It's a win all round because I get a moment of peace to just cook in the kitchen and enjoy it, where Sophie gets to go off, play with Noah, and is guaranteed dinner at the end of it. So it's a win-win situation essentially in our house. Right, this butter is melting down quite beautifully. I'm gonna get straight in there with the onions and the leeks. And I always season as soon as those onions go in. It helps to dry out the moisture, it helps to cook them out, and it also begins the seasoning process of this entire dish. I now have run out of salt, so I want to show you, actually have a look at this, because my big thing, I'm obsessed with Maldon sea salt. This is not sponsored, hashtag no spons, hashtag no ad, but this stuff is great, and the fact that you can get it in like giant buckets like this off Amazon, I get very excited. And I just fill it up like this every time I run out. So this is exactly what happens in my kitchen around once a week. The other thing I always have to hand is a little bit of black pepper. And I know it seems like a lot of effort, but I try and grind my black pepper as freshly as I can. If you have kind of ground pepper that's been sitting around for a long time, it just kind of loses its flavor and tastes like nothing. Right, let's get in here and let's just give this a little bit of love. And then at this point now, where it's kind of taking on that little bit of heat and it's come up to temperature, turn it right down to a kind of about a medium low, and this means that the onions and the leeks are going to cook out really nicely and gently and give you that really great sweet flavor that you're looking for in this stroganoff. So while that's cooking away, let's get back to the prep. Now I'm just using bog standard supermarket mushrooms here. You don't need to go anything fancy here, but if you can track them down, which I tried to pick up some like interesting textured mushrooms, like oyster mushrooms you could add in here. So straight into our bowl. So big bowl of mushrooms. Our onions and leeks have beautifully softened down, so have a look at that. Straight in there with all those beautiful mushrooms, which look like an absolutely giant pile, but these will reduce down as they cook out. Okay, so while that is cooking out, we need to talk about the beef. We are going to use some beautiful sirloin steak for this fantastic stroganoff. You can use chicken, you can use pork, but I really like sirloin steak because it's nice and tender, and we're going to cook it out quite quickly. So all you want to do with this is slice it really thinly. I like the little slivers in here, and remember, we're going to serve this with the fettuccine, so I like the fact that you're getting a little bit of the meat, you're getting a little strand of pasta. So meat goes straight into our bowl, and we're going to dust this with a little bit of flour, but hands need a wash first. Okay, now we're in a good place. We've got the onions, the mushrooms, the leeks going on. You can see they've reduced right down. And actually, the mushrooms start to kind of leave out a little bit of liquid, which has kind of helped to deglaze the pan. But don't worry, we're going to be adding more flavor in there. So I'm going to transfer them straight into our bowl. Save yourself any washing here, and you just want to grab up a bit of kitchen paper and give that a nice wipe clean, just to make sure you get a nice fresh pan to start off with your beef. Now, for our meat, we're going in with a little touch of oil. I have a little bit of plain flour. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want a kind of a nice crust to our beef, but I also want to make sure that it actually kind of helps to thicken our sauce as well. Also, going to season this quite heavily with some salt and some pepper. And by doing this, I always think it's important to season the meat. Like, a lot of people kind of dust things in flour but don't season the actual meat. So that's a really good thing to do at this point. And then we're just going to literally toss this through. About half this meat mixture is going to go in here. And you do not want to overcrowd the pan here. Really, it's about making sure that you have a nice even layer so that it fries off beautifully. Okay, come in and have a look at this, because this is where you want your meat to be. Nice little crusty bits, gorgeous, sizzling and golden. And now I'm going to give you a little tip, which is if you've transferred your mushrooms and your leeks and all that, literally transfer the entire lot, juices and all, in on top of the mushrooms and the leeks, because this means that you're not going to lose any of those juices. And see the way it's kind of like sticking at the bottom there? Don't be put off by this, because we're going to deglaze the whole pan with a little bit of white wine. Okay, next batch goes in, and then we're going to fry this off and bring it all together as a beautiful little stroganoff. Okay, this is browning off quite nicely, and I've just forgotten that I actually haven't added the garlic to the onions and the leeks, so come back around here. We have, I only want to add in about 2 to 3 cloves of garlic here. I always kind of go heavy on the garlic, but in this situation, we just want to smash it with the back of our hands, grab up a sharp knife, and then just give it a nice fine slice. I'm actually going to throw this in alongside the beef as it's cooking out. Okay, nice little slivers of garlic going in. It smells absolutely phenomenal right now, and we've got nicely brown meat. I'm actually going to deglaze the pan, because if you come in here and have a look at this, it looks quite scary. It looks like it could nearly burn, all those little kind of brown bits at the bottom. But we're going to make some magic in the kitchen right now. Now, this is the magic ingredient that's going to deglaze the pan, get all that flavor involved, and also give you this sort of rich, sweet fruitiness. So, straight into the pan, and let the magic flow. This is exactly what you want. You want a bit of flame action. Now, you don't have to do this, and of course, if you're doing it at home, you don't have to have the flame action, but it does guarantee you really beautiful end results. And actually, at this point now, we're going to add in the rest of the meat and the onions and the garlic and, of course, the leeks. Now we've got stroganoff coming together at this point. By adding those ingredients in there, you're reducing the heat in the pan, but you're also going to allow yourself the time to kind of scrape up those meaty bits. So come in here and have a look, because this is what I'm talking about. See those kind of bits at the bottom that feel like they shouldn't be there? You're going to try and scrape them into the sauce, and you can see that white wine is turning from that kind of yellow, pale yellow liquid to something that's really rich and meaty looking. So take your time, scrape it through, and essentially at this point we have the bones of this gorgeous stroganoff together. So right now, while that kind of comes up to temperature, I'm going to open up our fettuccine, and we're going to get this into the pan. So straight in. Oh, I nearly forgotten. I need to salt my water. So a good teaspoon or so of salt goes into the water, and then straight in with that fresh fettuccine. This will literally take minutes to make. Give it a little swirl in the pan just to make sure that it completely gets coated. Okay, we are in a very good place. It smells phenomenal. I'm going to turn the heat down on the stroganoff at this point, and we're going to bring this to a stroganoff place, which requires a little bit of Dijon mustard. So I've got about a teaspoon of this peppery bite that's going to add really great flavor. Our little secret ingredient in terms of spice is some smoked paprika. So a little bit of smoked paprika goes in here, and just give that a stir through. And what we're going to do is bring down that heat and slowly incorporate the cream. The smell when you add the smoked paprika, the smell when you add the mustard, really, really good things going on. And to this, we're now gonna get in there with some double cream. So kind of pour and stir, because basically you don't want to split this mixture, and that's why I've turned down the heat. So this is now gonna come up to a nice steady simmer. Our pasta is done, so come over to the colander and we'll just pop that straight out. Okay, pasta's cooked. Stroganoff is exactly where it needs to be. I'm just gonna let it simmer for a moment or two, and then essentially all we're gonna do is half of this is gonna go into a lunchbox, half of it is gonna be for serving this evening, but essentially I have a dinner that is ready to rock, total comfort food. Let's go serve it up. Right, we've served it up. I've got my lunchbox ready to go. This is going into the fridge. I also have dinner that's ready to rock. I feel like it would be, even though it's about 10 o'clock in the morning, it's unjust to not try this. And I think it's important in general, even if you are cooking in the morning, to make sure you try the food, because otherwise you'll come to dinner time and it actually won't taste of anything. So always worthwhile tasting. Oh man. It's 10 o'clock in the morning and I feel like I could have that for breakfast. It tastes absolutely phenomenal. Guys, if you like the recipe, as always, I will leave it in the box below. So make sure you check it out there. Leave us a comment letting me know if you will try this little method of making dinner at breakfast time. And until then, I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna have a very nice dinner tonight and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.